Hello, respective viewers. I'm George from Ireland. A few developments in UK politics. Well, Edwin Poots, that was short but not sweet, must be the shortest ever leadership of any UK political party. After barely a fortnight as leader of the Democratic Unionist Party, he is standing down. And the DUP is not to be sneezed at. It's the fourth largest party at Westminster. Now, that's partly because the Liberal Democrats have only got 11 MPs. Oh no, sorry, wait a second. The fifth biggest, actually. Lib Dems have got one more than they do. But, and could be kingmaker if there was a very close election. Remember, it was only because the DUP were willing to help out the Conservatives in 2017 that Theresa May was able to limp on with that confidence and supply agreement. So stepping down under pressure from his own parliamentary party. Admittedly, he's in the Northern Ireland Assembly, not at Westminster. And then Paul Girvan, I think it's Girvan you pronounce it. He's the first Minister of Northern Ireland. He's been in office for 5 days. And there's intense pressure for him to fall on his sword, again from within his own party. He's not absolutely clear if he's going to, so they split it. Wait a second, what am I saying? Poots is at Westminster, but the other chap is not, is Girvan's his First Minister of Northern Ireland. They've done a job split, so he's not actually the leader of the DUP, Paul Girvan. It was between Poots and Sir Geoffrey Donaldson. I mean, Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, I think, is more presentable, more moderate. He used to be in the Ulster Unionist Party, was Poots was always in the DUP. Donaldson, he only shifted over to the DUP because he couldn't abide, the Good Friday Agreement, felt that the IRA, brackets Sinn Féin, was breaking so many promises and getting away with it. There was always a faction of the Ulster Unionist Party that was against that. Anyway, other things. So the Liberal Democrats, their first rosy news in several years, that Amersham and Cheshire by-election, where they overturned a Conservative majority of 16,000, and they themselves won by 8,000. That's been the most astonishing turnaround. What a reversal of fortunes. So it was a 25% swing to them, to the Liberal Democrats. And if that were replicated across the realm, the Liberal Democrats would be the government. But anyway, I wouldn't hold out too much hope for that. The Lib Dems must remember that one swallow does not a summer make. Now, they've had spectacular breakthroughs before, but that's not translated into anything general at the next Westminster election. Take the Eastbourne by-election 1989. Yeah, Ian Gow being murdered by the IRA. So the Lib Dem leader at the time, Paddy Ashdown, thought they just shouldn't contest it, just let the Conservatives stand unopposed. But Lord Reynard, he was their director of elections, said, no, we will contest it. And actually, they romped home because of the nadir of Thatcher's popularity. Lord Ashdown, as he later became, thought, no, actually, Chris Reynard was right to insist that we contest this one. They've had other things like the Albany by-election in the early 60s, or where was it, the Newbury by-election in about 95. And okay, they made major gains in 97, but that doesn't mean that they came anywhere near even being the second biggest party. But okay, so at least some good news for Sir Ed Davey, who apart from that was really just failing to make an impact, with Sir Keir Starmer somehow not connecting. You thought that this might be good for the Liberal Democrats, they'd make the weather, but it hasn't been until this stunning surprise that they've pulled off. So Conservatives are saying to themselves, we cannot afford to be complacent. Yeah, we're riding high in the polls, but that support could be brittle. Anyway, so these are some developments. Now, Sir John Bercow, Conservative MP as he was, Speaker of the House of Commons, who stood down in 2009, he has now joined the Labour Party. Now, I never saw that one coming. So Bercow was born in 1961, son of a London taxi driver. He's Jewish on his father's side. Berkov was a surname initially when they came from Russia a couple of generations earlier. Plain English on his mother's side. He was in the Monday Club and in their chairman of their immigration committee when he was 18. Now, he later left that, repudiated that, and felt that there was a strain of anti-Semitism in the Monday Club. But he was a fervent Thatcherite and used to train Conservatives to how to rebut leftist arguments. And he was elected MP for Buckingham in 1997. This story's always doing the rounds. He was on the Conservative candidates list. There were two so interviews to be Conservative candidate for Buckingham and somewhere else on the same night, hundreds of miles away from each other, and there was no way you could drive from one to the other, and you couldn't change the dates. How on earth are you going to do it to get, let's say, 200 miles in half an hour? The only way was to hire a helicopter. You're spending £1,000 on that. So in the mid-90s, £1,000 was far more than it is today. But anyway, he made it. He was adopted for Buckingham when, who's that guy who stood down? George Walden. He's the father of Celia Walden, that journalist who's married to Piers Morgan. But anyway, so that was an ultra-safe Conservative seat. Having said that, it was held by Robert Maxwell as a Labour MP briefly in the late 60s. Bercow, he was re-elected. Now, traditionally, people don't stand against the Speaker, but that's a convention, it's not a law. The United Kingdom Independence Party stood against him. Indeed, Nigel Farage, the sometime leader of UKIP, he stood against Bercow. Of course, Labour, Conservatives, and indeed the Liberal Democrats did not, because when you become Speaker, you resign from your party and you stand as Speaker, and they don't express a view on political views. But everybody knew he had been a Conservative MP, and on the right of the party, a hardline Eurosceptic, denouncing federasts. So I've met him on a couple of occasions. He's a very engaging, very diminutive chap, high octane delivery. Anyhow, so in 2009 he became Speaker of the House of Commons. He served for 10 years. He stepped aside. Yes, he was knighted as soon as he became Speaker. They usually find themselves awarded a peerage, but he wasn't. Towards the end of his time, people saying that he was partial to Remainers. His wife was a Labour Party member, was an aspiring parliamentary candidate, was actually never selected as a candidate. Lady Sally Bercow was always embarrassing him, telling a journalist in an interview, my favourite item in my handbag is my dildo. And he said, "You don't want me to put that in, do you?" And she said, no, I do. Or posing with wearing just sheets for a photo and stuff like that. And people thought this was unbecoming of the Speaker's wife. She was also going on all these daytime chat shows. But anyway, there was a Europhile sticker on his car, but he said no, that was his wife's car, not his. But he was booed by Conservative MPs. He refused to chair a certain sitting of the House of Commons, so they felt that he was biased. And this would be someone who's respected by all quarters of the House. So anyway, he's now gone to join Labour, which I didn't see coming. Although, oddly enough, his wife, Sally, when she was at Oxford, she was in the Oxford University Conservative Association, organised a notorious party which strippers were there, and that got leaked to the national press. But she then went down without a degree. She just dropped out. She got into trouble when she's working in the City of London for lying and claiming to have a degree when she didn't. She went to Marlborough College. That's a school, not part of the university. Marlborough, same school as Cape Middleton, but they're not that similar. Anyway, I don't think Bercow is going to go very far. Could he have aspirations to be accepted, selected as a Labour MP? Maybe. But usually, if you had any contact with something like the Monday Club, you'd be outcast into the outer darkness for Labour these days of BLM forever. But perhaps he can be absolved because he did leave that organisation decades ago. Do you want people to change or not? But things are like with the Me Too movement. If you've done anything, if you've ever asked anybody out on a date or something, that's it. You can never, ever be forgiven. Okay, so these are some of the fascinating developments in UK politics at the moment. Toodaloo.